with beings there similar to themselves, unless he learns their language. Even I, who had then learned perfectly 18 of their different languages, found myself during my travels under conditions at times where I had not even the possibility of getting fodder for my horse, in spite of the fact that my pockets were full of what is called their money, for which in general they give you with the greatest joy there anything you please. It may happen there that if one of these unfortunate beings existing in some town or other, knowing all the languages used in that town, finds it for some reason or other necessary on another occasion to be in some other place at a distance of 50 or so of what are called their miles, which distance corresponds approximately to one of our klintrana, then this ill-fated three-brained being, happening to be even at this insignificant distance from the place of his somehow or other established existence, owing to the abnormality there, referred to, and also of course because in the common presences of these unfortunate beings the data in general for instinctive perception were long ago atrophied, becomes absolutely helpless, and can neither ask for what he needs nor understand a word of what is said to him. These numerous languages of theirs not only have nothing in common with each other, but one of them will sometimes be so built up that it has absolutely no correspondence with the possibilities of those organs of the common presence of the being which are specially adapted by nature for this purpose and which are called vocal cords. And even I, who have a much greater possibility in this respect, was entirely unable to utter certain words. The beings of the planet Earth themselves, however, realized this absurdity of theirs, and recently, while I was still there, a number of representatives of their different solid communities met somewhere together jointly to find a means for a way out of this difficulty. The fundamental purpose of these representatives of the contemporary important communities who assembled together was to select one of the languages already existing there and to make it common for the whole planet. However, as usual, nothing resulted either from this really sensible intention of theirs, owing as ever, of course, to those same usual dissensions of theirs, thanks to which all their promising beginnings always fall through. In my opinion, you will find it useful if I tell you a little more in detail why, in the given case, these said dissensions of theirs occurred, as this will be a very characteristic example of all the dissensions in general arising among them. At the outset, these said representatives of the contemporary solid communities, why I don't know, fixed their choice of a common planetary language on one of the three following languages existing at present, called Ancient Greek, Latin, and the language newly composed by the contemporary beings, Esperanto. The first of the said three languages was the one which was worked up and which served for the spoken relations of the beings of that ancient community there, which, as I've already told you, arose from a small group of Asiatic fishermen, and which group later became a solid community, the beings of which were, during a long period, specialists there in the invention of sciences. From the beings of this community, that is, from these said ancient Greeks, not only many different sciences, but likewise their language reached contemporary beings. But the second language which they proposed to make a common planetary language, namely Latin, was the language spoken by the beings of that ancient solid community formed, as I have also told you, from a small group of Asiatic shepherds whose descendants were later the cause of the fact that in the presences of all the beings there of subsequent generations there was gradually formed and ultimately in the contemporary beings became already definitely fixed and obligatorily inherent in them that perverted function, thanks to which all impulses arise in them, in the sense of striving for evolution, are already automatically paralyzed at their very roots, and which they themselves call sexuality. Well, when these representatives of various contemporary powerful communities met in order collectively to choose one or another of the mentioned three languages, they could not settle upon any one of the three languages owing to the following considerations. Latin they found poor in the sense of the number of words. And indeed, my boy, the shepherds with their limited needs could not create a many-worded language. And although Latin became later on the language of a large community, yet beyond the special words required for orgies, they did not introduce into it anything that could suit the contemporary beings of your planet. And as regards the Greek language, then, although by the wealth of its vocabulary it might indeed serve as a universal language for their whole planet, because these former fishermen, in inventing every possible kind of fantastic science, happened also to devise very many corresponding words which remained in that language, yet these representatives of the contemporary powerful communities could not fix their choice upon it, owing to a peculiar particularity which also flows from this same strange psyche of theirs. The point is that all the beings assembled to select a common planetary language were representatives of communities which had become, at that period of their contemporary civilization, powerful, or, as they also say, great. But this ancient Greek language continues at the present time to be spoken by the beings of a contemporary small community called Greece, who, though they are descendants of the former great Greeks, have not now at their disposal as many of what are called guns and ships as those important communities whose representatives were just then assembled in order unanimously to select one common language for the whole planet. Therefore, in all probability, each of these representatives deliberated somewhat as follows. Heavens above, can anybody use a language which is spoken by the beings of such a trifling community? It hasn't even guns to entitle its representatives to equal participation in our international 5 o'clocks. And indeed such contemporary beings there, namely such as become representatives of important communities, know nothing, of course, of the true reasons why, that is, on their planet, beings similar to them, dwelling on one or another part of the surface of their planet, or who make up this or the other community, become at times temporarily important or great. They do not even begin to suspect that this proceeds not because of any particular qualities in the beings themselves of the given communities, but depends exclusively only from what part of the surface of their planet, in correlation with the harmonious movement of the whole of their solar system, there is required at the given period for the purposes of the most great omni-universal trogo-auto-egocratic process, more of those vibrations arising either from their radiations or from the process of the sacred Ras Kowarno proceeding with them. And in regard to the third language, which these assembled representatives also proposed making the common planetary language, namely that language which,